It's a spin-off, right? So okay, we'll talk about the cut later on then, right? So if you're going to do it here, you may as well make some money. Johnny, what was it that brought you to Berlin then?
What was it that brought me to Berlin? So it is actually a question I'm asked quite often on my tours, right? So I've got a kind of rehearsed answer in a way, but it is still a very honest one. Um, I often say to people, "What stupid stuff did you do when you were 21?" Um,
I'm still doing
because
it.
me too,
I'm
and
53, so yeah, it's.
I'm 34, so it's good to know I've got a long road of still doing stupid stuff.
I'm
Uh,
consistent at some things, so.
I'm seemingly consistently in Berlin, despite having tried to leave a couple of times. So I think what people want to hear, because I'm a guide and I obviously love the place and I love telling the story and showing people, they want to hear, oh, I just love it. But I think, life's a bit more complicated than that, right? And yeah, when I was 21, I moved here because they had clubs that opened on Friday and closed on Monday. And I got a job as a tour guide where I worked 4 hours a day and I didn't really have to care so much. And there were other people like me that worked there, and a lot of us are still, well, we're all still friends, but a lot of us still live here, and I still see them, although our lives have calmed down quite a bit. But my idea of staying here for 6 months to do that, was quite fun. But then by the time I was ready to, I wanted to leave, it was the spring, and I was like, well, I'll be a tour guide through the summer. That makes sense.
Well, the weather makes a huge difference, when you're in that type of business, right? It's
Absolutely a
spring
financial
and summer.
difference.
It's
Yeah, a
pleasant.
financial difference, and then yeah, it's just very pleasant. And like one of the real reasons I left the UK was because of David Cameron, who in 2010, when he was elected, it was actually the same month that I finished university, and he said that what was at the time the largest graduate unemployment issue for about 25 years. He said the problem will fix itself, which was great when I moved back into my parents' house. I was really happy to hear that solution. And so I just started looking for jobs elsewhere in the EU. You'll probably see where this is going. As a big fan of the EU and this live anywhere and go there and learn the culture and work here. And I thought a few years later, Mr. Cameron, please. Please don't do this.
There's a drum roll coming here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great big punchline coming. And so in that time up to 2016, I'd met my now previous partner, and we were in love for a time, and we were living together, and then Brexit happened, and then I was like, right, time to get citizenship, and that took me through to the end of 2018. And then I don't know. I was actually quite despondent in 2018. I didn't really know where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, and I thought of moving back to the UK. But it's maybe similar for you, having lived abroad for so long. The home that you left isn't really there.
No.
The family are there, the friends are there, but there's all these little changes, and people have moved maybe geographically. So yeah, I left when I was 21. I was basically still a kid, and so that idea isn't really there. And so I kind of fumbled my way into the pandemic and came out the other side wanting to be a tour guide again. The last time I was a full-time tour guide was 2014, and I started it again in 2022 in September. And yeah, it's quite a short version of 13 years, but in that time, it hasn't been like, oh, I just love Berlin, because I do. I really love it here. But I'm now in a much happier relationship, and that it just feels like home. It's weird when I go to Neukoln, where I lived for 10 years. I don't know if you've been to Berlin, but the district of Neukoln, it's full of a few cliches, really. It's like, for people like me, it's the young,
does it maybe have a certain reputation, or its reputation goes before it?
Absolutely. If you live in Neukoln,
should tell you, I haven't been to Berlin yet, so yeah.
Well, I'll show you around when you get here.
Definitely.
But yeah, let's see. I started at one point thinking, oh, I should really read the German news. I read too much Brexit news. It makes me sad. And then I read about a guy who had just been attacked by 4 other men with machetes about 100 meters from my front door. And I was like, oh yeah, that's why Germans say that about Neukölln. And so I stopped. My neighbor at the time, she was really cool. She would sit on the balcony. We had like basically no divider between our balconies. And she'd be like, oh yeah, I saw the plainclothes police jump a guy the other day. I was like, okay.
Are you familiar with the district in Leipzig called Konowitz?
No, but I'll be visiting Leipzig soon,
So
and I will.
it's a notorious neighborhood. So I have a student. I won't mention the companies and all that, but a student who started as a trainee for a really big company, like a global company. And one day we were doing the beginning of the lessons, and they're young, like they're 25, so they've just finished master's degree, and now they're getting into the kind of this thing. And one girl lives in the centre of Leipzig, and she's all like, "Oh, this is great," and all that. And another guy lives kind of halfway between Nuremberg and here, and he's kind of all, yeah, he's just trying to find his feet. And this other girl said, "Oh yeah, I live in Konowitz," and then they just kind of, there's just this. I didn't know what their reputation, but apparently it's like this. It has riots and all sorts of mad communist things going through it and stuff, and it's like super, super bullshit, you know?
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah, I'll let you Google it.
Yeah, I will. I look forward to it.
I drove through it last year, actually. I did drive through it because I don't know, I kind of took the wrong car. It was fine. It was a glass.
I think I must have been there. In all of my many years in Neukoln, I was totally fine. But it is, as is my understanding, the home of German and or Berlin organized crime. And so, but yeah, these guys don't like, they just see a white guy walking down the street like me, and they're like, yeah, it's just some German dude who's like keeping to himself. Like, I don't know. They're not interested. And I never ever had any run-ins, anything. I think I'm quite a naive person. I don't really notice things like this, so I was totally fine. But yeah, don't read the news.
All right, so it's David Cameron's fault. It's all David Cameron. Speaking of gangsters and all that, right? So,
yeah. It's the two kinds of gangsters, right? The ones you hear about and the Eton boys.
Yes, exactly, 100%. You won't get any complaints from me there. And in between your hiatus from tour guiding, what were you doing in between?
It wasn't much of a hiatus from tour guiding, I should say. I was managing walking tour company for 7 years, so I got a kind of promotion there, I guess, and so that's where I really learned a lot. And it was a company that I worked for as a freelancer that I really admired, and so the opportunity to jointly take the reins for a few years was really fun. And then I think I'm very grateful that I was kept on the books, of course, during the pandemic, but afterwards rebuilding it was not so exciting for me. I was not the owner or anything. So, trying to get it back up to a 2019 level, maybe a bit more efficient, so on. I was like, okay, I've done this. This is okay. I don't know have you ever managed people?
In some capacity, yes.
Yeah. So for me, I was mostly managing freelancers, so it's not like a boss, but it was, you have to deal with a lot of people's shit.
Yeah.
And I did 7 years of it. It's fine. It was a really good job, where I learned basically everything that I'm doing now. I'd done the guiding for 5 years, done that for 7 years. And so I just saw an opportunity to get out there and do my own thing, which is that's my ultimate end goal. Is I would like to have all of my own clients, not have any middlemen, and not because I dislike any of the middlemen I work with, but because I like the idea of a complete project. And it must be the same with music, where you want the first note to the last hit of the cymbals, to the artwork, to what you're wearing on stage. You just have that vision. And obviously there's going to be compromises and changes along the way, but I hope that doesn't make me sound like a complete asshole.
No, not
the
at all.
fewer the better, right?
Yeah.
If you're a creative person, and so that's what I've been doing since September last year. I had a brief 2 months in between where I had a new job where I was the team lead of a sales team, in a small tech company, which was a very nice job, a very, I think, quite coveted job, because there's potential for quite a bit of money in sales, and there's a lot of tech jobs in Berlin, and you get all this flexibility and holiday. And it just really wasn't for me. I liked my colleagues a lot. They were super, super nice people, really. The CEO is really lovely guy, which not many people would say about their boss, He's so approachable and nice, but I was just super unhappy. I was, very unhappy. So last year I quit 2 quite nice and secure jobs, the kind of job your mum knows and understands and likes.
Yes,
and I handed in.
It's easy to explain kind of thing. You get the outline done quite quickly.
Yeah. Because what I find myself saying now is, well, I'm actually quite popular on Instagram, and you're like, it's just status nosedive. I really reckon if someone could bottle the high of quitting a job, it'd be very wealthy.
That's yes, I know exactly how you feel. Well, yeah, I get it. I really do, because I work for myself now as well, and
lovely.
You cut out the middleman, so the only shit you deal with is your own, more or less, right? You do with some other bits and pieces, but it's
and it's not a perfectly smooth ride. You make mistakes.
No.
You have successes. You learn things. You say, "I wish I knew that 6 months ago, 5 years ago," but you're so much more engaged, and proud and involved, and it's
yours as well, though. I think you add a bit more to it if you're coming from definitely a more genuine place. There's a difference between your job and enjoying it and doing all the things you mentioned there, and then there's the other thing about bringing yourself to it, and especially in you. Maybe we can compare our lines of work, but I meet strangers basically, or we become acquainted over the weeks and months. But generally, since the pandemic, I've only been working online. Very rarely do I do face-to-face anymore. So I'm it's a bit weird, but that's more from a logistic point of view. I don't have to run around like a muppet and.
I mean, there was a kind of brief rise of virtual tours, like with Gimbal, which is how I record some of my videos and stuff. I've never done a virtual tour. I think I'd take up the offer if it came up. It might sound like a bit of a niche thing, but I have friends that do it, and they often, they're doing a virtual tour. They're walking around Berlin. It's online, and it's being beamed into a retirement home in the US, and as a result, it's I think quite rewarding, because there are people who probably won't have the chance to travel again, spend all that money, and they don't really have as much independence as they used to, right? And so you can bring a bit of the world to them, and it's something that I'm open to. It's just not really been it's not really been on my radar so far. But otherwise, I really love it. I love being face to face with my clients, whether they're my direct clients or like today I did a group tour for a company. I was with 30 people, but I love to meet them and talk to them, and it's kind of the same conversation every day.
Right.
But it's also not.
It's fine, right? Yeah, right, exactly. It's I get it. And I think you have to be a certain type of person to be able to do that as well, right? So that's where your personality or your character comes into play.
Yeah, but it's very, how can I put it? For me, very natural to talk to people, especially people I don't know, because that's very low stakes. And to talk to an audience is something I've always, throughout school and so on, I remember I had no problems with that. In fact, it's something I really, really like. Not with reading lines, though. Like not acting. I'm not at all an actor. I think actors really have to be team players, and I'm very much an attention whore. And so,
Well, ironically, actors will probably kill each other for the best part or any part in that case. So there might be
absolutely. Maybe I could be a successful actor that nobody likes.
They're all on strike now anyway, Johnny. So strike while the iron's hot, right? So
well, you joke, but the Barbie premiere in Berlin is cancelled, so I hope you're happy.
Oh, nightmare. Let's move on. How is the market in Berlin? And if I could ask you, like the tour guide business, or is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, tour guide business, tour industry. Yeah, like on a broader scale, if I was being like, actually, I mean, I think this is probably, God bless him, a Mark Zuckerberg quote that I've paraphrased here, but it's like the attention game, right? So yeah, you're competing for tourist attention, be that with a museum or a boat trip or whatever. Sure, but like down then on a more micro level, amongst tour guides, what has always what I've always loved is that it's a very supportive group of people. Be that in any which way you can interpret it, supportive. Actually, I remember once a friend of mine, his girlfriend was diagnosed with cancer, and she's fine now. She's got the all clear now. This was a few years ago, but it meant that he couldn't work for a while because he was taking her in and out of hospital and whatever. And there was a very quick whip around for whatever. It ended up, I can't remember how much money it was in the end, like $1,000 or $2,000 or something, to get him through those first appointments. Because if as a tour guide, if you're not performing a tour, you make zero money. So that's the most serious end, and really quite a touching story when I think about it. And then there's just stuff like everybody sharing contacts and helping each other get things covered if you need to. There's very few people who are very standoffish, arms folded. We're competitors. I don't talk to you. Like,
because you'll see each other on the way, right? It's the kind of thing where you might not be visiting, across the street or whatever it may be. You'll be in the same vicinity from
Absolutely,
time to time.
Yeah, or you're waiting while the group are looking at this or that, and you just have a nice chat and so on. And everybody ends up working with or for somebody else at some point, and so it pays to be nice, but most people just are nice. If there's anybody listening that does know about the Berlin tour industry, I will say only that there is one person who everybody is a bit, has a bit of distance from.
Yes, okay.
And no names need to be said, but it's only the one person, and it's rather the exception that proves the rule. And so yeah, that positivity, supportiveness. It's also a bunch of nerds. So you'll get a few people who want to brag about how much tips they got and whatever, and it's never really interested me. I mean, we all earn enough money to pay our rent and go on holiday once or twice a year and have a nice time. I mean, no one's. If you wanted a gold-plated toilet, you probably shouldn't have become a tour guide. So
no, right.
There's no sense bragging about cash, but I'll meet up with fellow tour guide friends and we'll be like, let's go to this far-flung place that nobody ever goes to. I might be visiting a sewage farm soon with some of my tour guide friends because of something more important that used to be there, which was like a World War I prison camp, but now it's a sewage farm. We're like, yeah, we want to go. We want to be where it was, despite what is now there. And so it's like that level of nerd in a way, right? Like, who wants to go? It's quite nerdy. Yeah. Even I'm impressed with that.
But in a good way. I mean, like, I think we've all. Well, speaking for myself anyway, and I guess I can speak for you somewhat. Then you have to kind of embrace your inner nerd as you get on a bit as well. It's. I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all.
No, I think people really respond to that as well. They see somebody who's passionate about something. And,
there you go. That's it right there. Exactly.
Yeah, it's one of the nicest things I learned in life, actually, is if you have the opportunity to spend some time with someone who really cares about something, do it and listen to them, because it still might not be your cup of tea at the end of the day, but you'll know why it's important to either one person or many people. So I think of particular art exhibitions in my head that I would not have been interested in. I would have walked through and gone not interested. But I was there with somebody who cared, and they were like, this is this is that, that's why that matters, and so on. And when someone's excited, I mean, I don't know, people feed off each other's moods, right?
Yeah, definitely.
If you have a complainer in a tour guide group who's just unhappy with everything, it'll spread, and the opposite is also
true. A little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it can lead to quite funny things. I got my first ever non-5-star review in 13 years of doing tours. That was just a couple of months ago. 3 stars. when talking about the history of the Third Reich, I didn't go into enough detail, but I also didn't talk about enough conspiracy theories.
All right. Note to self then, right?
Yeah.
Like,
more
okay.
detail, more imagination.
Yes. Oh man. Yeah, what is it? You can't please all the people all the time, and it's just
I
Okay,
don't think
fair
I could
enough,
have pleased
pal.
this person at all. I wasn't shocked to receive the review, and I do find it quite funny. So
Your content online, your website's great, by the way. Really easy to
thank
go
you.
through. It's super logical. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but it's like really well put together and all that. You can see kind of thought process and bits here and there, and then you've got your booking section, which you've been promoting the last couple of days or so. So yeah, you got to
I
tell
have.
people how good it is and how it
It
works. So
is.
it's
It
that's
is
what it's
good. I'm
for.
very happy with
That's
it. But
social
they
media
have
is for.
they have also recently paid me to say how good it is too.
I kind of put two and two together,
Oh no, I have to make that clear. It's a little thing there. It says that it's sponsored. But yeah, I've been getting a lot of social media attention this year, and so obviously your eyes do kind of dollar signs a little bit, right? There's a chance there, but I wouldn't promote something that I wouldn't use myself. So in this case, I'm promoting the same thing I use on my website. So it's like
Win-win.
Yeah, I do use it.
I'd been looking through Reddit, so this is maybe
Oh gosh,
a few weeks ago, or maybe even a couple of months ago. And I think the first video I saw that you put out was describing the lampposts in Berlin and the significance of them. We would. Is there a spoiler alert? I don't know. I don't think so. They've been there for a while, so
It does spoil some things, yeah.
And I was like,
tell the people the story, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, yeah, I can't remember it now. So anyway, I guess that's your department, man. That's your department.
Designed
You're the
by
man
the
for
Nazis.
that stuff.
Yeah,
I know a man that can
is.
tell me all about it. But yeah, and that's what really kind of got my attention. I thought you'd drop your line because there just seemed to be a kind of general, or rather, a genuine enthusiasm in a minute clip or whatever it was, and maybe it was under a minute. It was something that was just kind of like, that's great,
yeah.
right? It's kind of like nice little sound bites and stuff. And then if you want more,
pay me.
We can. There we go. You can. The name of your website is Jonny.
Oh, yes, it could be better, couldn't it? Whitlam's WHITLAMS minus Berlin minus tours.com. Or you could search for Whitlam's Berlin. I would imagine in Google, I would hope I'm the first entrant, because my name is surprisingly rare. Although there is another Jonathan Whitlam, which is why I have to go by Jonny. And I do implore you to look up the other Jonathan Whitlam.
Is he an outdoor survivalist specialist or something like that?
Almost. He's written a lot of books about tractors. The man loves tractors. Loves a tractor. That's his. He seems to be very passionate himself. So tractor DVDs.
There must be something in the water. Your tours go through certain locations in Berlin. Okay, a historic and world-renowned, world-famous city like Berlin. Yeah. And looking through some of the tours that you do, what would you say what's your niche then? What kind of separates you from the others doing it?
Yeah, that's actually, maybe you wouldn't expect this answer, because it is quite tough, I think, to stand out, because people do want to see the Brandenburg Gate and they do want to go to Museum Island and Checkpoint Charlie and see the wall. So I only made my website last year in November, so it's not even a year old. And at that time, when I finished it, and I was very proud of it, and I tried to get my tours on sale on all these different places, they said, you're not different and you don't stand out. Which, given that I'd spent 7 years managing exactly that kind of mainstream stuff, was not a surprise. And so I think at the moment, if you were to look just at my website, aside from the fact that it's probably, in my opinion, it is like a fair bit prettier than my competitors, but of course I would say that, I don't think it does stand out yet. I think people come to me because of these videos, and therefore they've seen them, and you get the kind of parasocial relationship, and so they're less interested in exactly what the content is, but they're like, but I like that guy and I want that guy.
There you go, right? That's it. That's a kind of USP right there.
Yeah, and that's really nice. But I'm going to, so today is Friday, and on Tuesday or Wednesday, I forget, but I'm going to do a big bike ride and put together the first tour that I'm putting online that I'm certain that nobody else does, which will be a big bike ride through very, very pretty scenery, through lots of trees, by lakes, palaces, or at least one palace. Two palaces. Three. But it's actually rather about Cold War history, and so it will include the Bridge of Spies and Checkpoint Bravo. And I did a video on a church that's by the side of the water that was ended up right in the middle of the Berlin Wall, in the middle of what was called the Death Strip. And then I want to finish the day with a beer garden and a boat trip back home to Berlin. And so it'll be a whole day thing. And I say no one else is doing it. The guy I'm working with to make it will also be doing it. So it won't be unique in that sense. But it will be something that's really put together by me and my friend, whose name is Asaf Lashem. If you want to look him up, he's a great guide as well. And so I'm very excited for that. But I also, I have quite high standards when it comes to marketing these things. And whether, if you look at my stuff and you think, oh, you do? Okay. There are at least high standards for me. And so I want my photos to all look good. And it just takes time. It just takes a lot of time. And to take nice photos in the summer of everyone having fun, you have to take time off in the summer. And that's hard as a tour guide. It's a kind of catch-22. So I think the more unique stuff outside of me and my personality is to come. As for the themes and so on that are on my website, most people don't book one of those things. They actually end up going, oh, I like a bit of this and a bit of that. And then they get in touch and they say, well, what would work for me? And, if we start here, or could we include this? And those themes are therefore are great to give people a good idea, and also an idea about pricing, because I think private tours are probably a fair bit more expensive than people would expect. Because it's great if you only work 3 hours a day, but you also need to eat. So, so I think people are quite excited to see somebody that makes these videos that feels good and engaging and feels like they'd be a good fun tour guide, and then actually talk to them and have a nice email back and forth or a Zoom call, and then go, oh, this particular plan, this particular day is really just for me, which is a great feeling. We all like to feel like a princess every now and then, don't we?
But a rock star, I'll say. Either.
I don't know. I can see you with a tiara.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll see. It's only Saturdays that happens. We're recording this on a Friday, I should say. So, But is there a particular... So you offer, let's see, is it 7 or 8? I can't remember.
I think there's maybe even 12 on there now, but it's I call it
so
the
you
big
can go through
problem.
them, You can go check the website, and there's a little link there, and you just go through them, and you can browse away and see what you like. Is there a particular favourite that you have yourself? What's your preferred
My
one?
favourite, should someone see behind the scenes now, I added a little top seller badge to it, even though it's a complete lie. My favourite is the Cold War tour. It's what I ended up... I didn't really study it at university per se. I studied politics, but in my second year of university, I had a lecturer from East Germany, who, for me, in 2007, 8, 9, when I was young and stupid, I was like, oh, she's from the past, I don't care. And I didn't realize how recent that past was, or maybe how important that was. And I really wish I don't even remember her name, so I'd struggle to find her, but I'd really like to ask her far more questions, especially about the state of the world and this country today. But that sparked a real interest for me. That's where my interest in history began, actually. And so it's relatively recent history, and I kind of worked my way backwards from there. But discovering, I think, the highs and lows of East Berlin was at first very interesting to me, because it's compared to the other German dictatorship era, I think there are more gray areas. I think the bad guys there did some very bad things, including the Stasi and imprisoning people and all this stuff. I know all of this stuff. I'm really not. I'm not at all an apologist for the East German state, but I think that the principles on which it is founded and some of the principles by which they lived are also quite admirable. And I think it's okay when people today miss things. Like my girlfriend's mother, who was able to, when she was studying, put her kids in daycare while she was at university, right? My sister could, when she had a child and was returning to work, and I won't go into too much detail, she needed to find a new job. Those jobs would scarcely cover the amount of childcare for one day. And they don't come with much flexibility and so on. And so people look back at some things from former Eastern Europe or East Germany and go, oh, there maybe was some good ideas in there as well.
Well, there's a bit in Katja, the Beyond the Wall, but Katja Hoyer?
Hoyer, Hoyer, yeah.
So I just finished it a few weeks ago, or rather, not recently. I finished it, and there's a bit, just as you mentioned that there, about that very subject. She gives quite a detailed account of both sides of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll always fall down on the side of, we shouldn't have a one-party state that shoots people that want to leave. Like, of course, I'm not crazy. So that's what then sparked my interest in that, and I was able to do tours on that pretty quickly. But those tours, whilst they say Cold War, it is really more of East German or East Berlin focus. And what's been really nice this year is getting noticed by Ian Sanders at the Cold War Conversations podcast, and ending up in a bit of a Twitter bubble with other kind of Cold War and Berlin nerds. And I've met quite a few people now, be it in real life or online, who were here at that time. And I'm starting to learn more places. My initial idea with my videos was to go to places that I don't go to on my tours, because I don't want to burn all the material that you're actually going to see on the day, right?
Yeah.
And so I've started to go to a bit more kind of far-flung places in West Berlin. It would be great to put something together that could include all of those locations too. It's not even in the planning stages at the moment, but because I'm such a nerd, I save all the places I've recorded a video on a map.
Well, the map is great, man. Right? It's right there. I mean, I think I'll shut up and I'll let you explain all about the map, because that's it's a stroke of genius, I think, Johnny, right? Why did no one think of that before, right?
Well, actually, as I was saying it, I realized I was talking about my private version of that map. Because there is a public one.
There's two, okay.
Yeah,
there's maybe more than two, but okay.
Yeah, oh God, there is, but no, there's, I have my public video map. So every so often, after I've done, like, say, 5 or 10 more videos, I'll go and update it and show the locations. I'll soon be adding the videos into the map as well, so you'll be able to watch them there as you're walking around, which I think is quite fun. And that is free, and it will remain free because it's just so much fun for me. But I have my map, which has at least 500 locations on, and probably 100 more in a list that's ready to go on, to be added on. And I can, when I have recorded a video, I switch it from, like, the dot, I switch from red to green, so I know it's done, so I won't accidentally go and film it twice. And from that, I can go, I could put a tour together here, because I could include X, Y, and Z. But keeping it thematic is also the problem, because I think people buy into the idea of doing I want to do a Cold War Berlin tour. I want to see where the spies were, and where Rudolf Hess was, and where the Berlin Wall was, and where the Stasi were, and this kind of stuff. But my dream would be, like, Johnny, just, like, do stuff for 6 hours, and also I've seen everything important already, all the famous stuff I've seen. So, like, just take me to some of your quote unquote weird stuff, right?
For the more enthusiasts, or like the real enthusiasts,
Yeah. Because, like, I go, like, I'll travel an hour to go look at a plaque Like, and I already know the story. There's no point in me going there. It's not like there's a nice cafe there or an information center or anything.
Just a thing in the wall and that's it, right? But
That's it.
you're willing to put in the hard yards for it, man.
And I'll stay there for an hour. I'll take 20 photos. I'll record myself talking into my phone. Often in my videos, I think I look like I'm concentrating too hard. I think I've lightened up a bit more lately. If you go back and look at the older ones, I'm obviously still learning the craft, and I'm very like, okay, I got to get this story out. And
as you were saying earlier, though, it's about practice and time and all that kind of stuff, and just feeling good doing it at the same time, right? You know, it's you have that genuine feel to it, because it's doing it with a camera. So it does take a wee bit of getting used to. Yeah, it's just
is that the same
unless
as
you're natural.
Is that the same as a musician when the record button is hit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, today it might be different for younger musicians doing it, just because of the access to technology. You can do it all at home, or you do it on your phone. But
so you're not burning as much money.
Yeah, exactly. But when we did it, or I remember recording our first EP, it was about like, all right, now we set all the gear up, and then usually the drummer records first, and because then they get rid of you. So it's like you do your stuff, and then they're like, all right, you can beat it now. So we put in all the overdubs and all that. But yeah, when that light goes on, you have to kind of, you're like, ooh, all right, just relax, think about what you're doing, but not overthink it. Yeah, it's just kind of, you know,
like get some of the spontaneity out of the room. I think perhaps I'm an awful musician. I did try. That's why it's the reason I've got long hair, is because I wanted to be a rock star.
What was your weapon of choice?
I was the de facto bass player by the virtue of where everyone already had a guitar and I can't play the drums because I have no sense of rhythm. I also can't sing, and believe this, I cannot play an instrument either.
You tried. I mean, you know, you put yourself out there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, happy I did, because I discovered I'm quite good at organizing, which is quite useful as a guide. Sometimes I'll be organizing multiple guides, and kind of project managing, I suppose. It would have been great if I was good at, hey, songwriting, singing, playing any instrument. But yeah, those are talents best left to other people.
Although, I mean, some of the kids you see on like YouTube clips or reels or whatever, you know, like 6-year-old kids or even younger doing like insane things. You're just like, yeah, man, when I was 6, I was doing not this stuff, right? I was like, I was being a kid, it's a bit, it's gone a bit the other way.
Tell yourself that the parents are overly pushy.
May well be.
Just tell yourself that. Doesn't matter.
I'm glad they're still doing it. To be fair, I'm glad the kids are still doing it. But yeah, there's that fine line between being pushy and like, being a social media personality in your younger days and all that stuff.
Having become something of a small one, but I think it's going to keep going up. I mean, as I get better at it as well. I'm very happy that I've come to this in my mid-30s. I've received some quite mean comments, which, I'm not the first person on the internet to do that, to have received those. Kind of personal
on that Reddit thread, there's a classic. The guy says something like, "Oh, it's a bit too much of me in this video," and you're like, "Dude, I'm a tour guide." It's like, an asshole, man. It was kind of like, "There's a bit too much of you." It's like,
He said it's rather a video about you than it is about the history.
Yeah,
that was about the assassination attempt on Hitler in 1939. Yeah, and
okay, right, yeah, that rings
and but I did answer it very honestly. I'm like, I want people to book me as a tour guide. I don't want it to just be a voiceover. Like,
and that was hilarious. I thought that was hilarious. It was just you're just like, come on, man, relax. Just
it was. But that's not. It's nowhere near the worst feedback I've received. I've received some very funny feedback. I mentioned that church before that ended up in the death strip and so on. A fellow commented, he said it wasn't even there. It was like, he picked some other place that is nearby, and so it wasn't even in the death strip. And I was like, right, okay. So you think I took a day off to ride my bike all the way to this kind of middle of nowhere place, shoot an entire video there, research an entire story that's just not true. I just made it up. Of course
Obviously.
I didn't. And you'd only take a second to Google, because I talk a lot about this the priest there, Joachim Strauss, and like, just Google the name. It'll come right up. Like, that's all I do. I Google the name, I check a few sources, boom, there's your story, off you go. But I do quite like, I have been thinking what my April Fool's video should be.
Well, you've got the good news is we're in the middle of July, so you've got plenty of time to think of a cracker, right? So, I'm expecting great things now you've mentioned it,
Oh God, I could only hope so. But yeah. But going back to the earlier point there about being happy I came to this in my mid-30s, is like, yeah, you can wash it off, and you know that people online, they'll say anything because they don't have to really look people in the eye when they say it. But I think if I were younger, and this was the point, I think if I were younger and still cared a lot more about what people thought about me, and took it more seriously, I think it really would have, the stuff I've been through this year really would have eaten me up. And so it does make me, when you say about a 6-year-old that's on there, maybe they're even less aware, but when I think of maybe 12, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds that kind of blow up on these places, I mean, it's probably the modern day equivalent of like child movie stars in the 1980s or so, right? Where nobody looked after them, and or Lindsay Lohan, even not even back as far as their 80s, right? Someone who just got very harshly judged, chewed up, spat out for probably just doing the same things anybody else did at that time. Like, oh, she maybe took coke at a party or something. Like, oh, I've never heard of someone in their mid-20s doing that,
That's if,
Yeah, and
Hollywood starlet has good time. Shocker,
Yeah, absolutely. And
is that what they do?
Indeed. And so, yeah, it's I really want to find out why people are mean on the internet, because if I don't like a video as I'm scrolling through, or TikTok and that, I just scroll to the next one. I don't stop and say, oh, I know, I shall pen a letter to this wanker. Next, done. Don't think about it, right?
Yeah.
So who's taking the time to be so rude to people they've never met? Sometimes I reply to people, I'm like, you don't have to be rude to me.
just move on, right?
Yeah, just move on, mate. Yeah. They never reply.
It's funny that, can I, because I can't, you'll have to help me out here. So the prison in East Berlin, or the Stasi, is it part of the Stasi headquarters?
No.
Or it's a separate prison, yeah?
It's nearby, yeah. Separate prison.
And the name of it is? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sorry, for clarity, the name is Hohenschönhausen.
That's it, right. I knew you'd get it right, and I wouldn't, so there we go. It's better to do it this way. When you visit there with groups, or when you visit the name of the concentration camp is, this is great when you've got a guest that knows these things. I just can't remember.
Worries. Sachsenhausen,
thank you. So last year I was in, we started a kind of East German trip last year. We visited Weimar and Erfurt, and we visited Dresden and Leipzig and Chemnitz and all that, but we never went to Berlin. We'll save that for another day. But it was near Buchenwald. Weimar is, and my wife and I talked about it. Would we go? And then we decided not to. We just both lost our mothers in the last year or so, and I don't know. I just didn't feel like
you didn't want to be surrounded by death and misery.
So I guess my question would be that you need to be in that certain. There's a certain atmosphere or aura to that kind of place, or in that environment. How do you deal with that kind of?
To talk about those two places separately for a second. Firstly, sure. I don't work at Hohenschönhausen. I've actually never brought a group there. I talk about the Stasi in East Germany quite a bit on my tour. Hohenschönhausen does have that kind of similar aura, a place that's very unjust, and a place that's very terrifying. At the same time, it's not a term I like to use so much, but what the Nazis were doing was much worse. The reason I don't like to use that term is it can diminish the suffering of people who went through the horrible things that they did at the hands of the Stasi, which I don't seek to do. But I think it's probably no shock to hear that the Nazis were, I mean, really the epitome of like sadism and callousness and so. So how do I manage that when I'm there? It's interesting because it's a I think about how I felt when I visited my first such place, which was Auschwitz, when I was 19, and I didn't want to go because I was 19 and I wanted to stay in Krakow and get drunk and have fun, and I thought this won't be fun. And my then girlfriend, she was like, "Well, look, we're here and we should go. Like, this is ridiculous not to go." And I was like, "You're totally right." And off I went, and it really changed my life. And it changed my life in a way that I'd never really. I grew up in a very homogenous place, so a village in Nottinghamshire, and a place where I'd not, we were educated about racism, but I'd never really thought about it so much. And you kind of know it's bad because you're told it's bad, and you don't really or I didn't really think about it that much. And I'm not proud of this, but I'm trying to be as honest as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that.
And when I went to Auschwitz, I was like, "Oh, this is the logical endpoint of racism. This is where it leads. This is where this kind of intolerance leads. Right? It might start as something small, but this is the end." And that had a really lasting impression on me. And then in Berlin, one of the most popular tours that people do is go out to the former Count Sachsenhausen, which does need a bit of a helping hand. It's not. I'm not a big fan of the design of the museum. I think it was good once upon a time, but it needs a bit of an update, in my opinion. And so it really is worth it to do a tour there, be that with me or with any of my friends and colleagues. And how do I manage it there? It's interesting. It's a strange place. People are expecting Auschwitz, and I don't want to say that they're disappointed, but then your brain does these weird things. You tell them there were 200,000 prisoners there total, 22,000 killed, and people go, "Oh, only." They don't say it, but you feel a bit of a thought.
And most right? It's like, well, it's not bad, right? Or
in the context of 11 million, it's a footnote, right? 11 million victims of the Nazis in total, and so you kind of have to. You've got to do a very, very strange balancing act because you have to really make sure that people know the importance of that particular place. But my group that I was there with today, I was there with 30 people today. 29 of them had never been to a former concentration camp in their lives. And so you're also doing a bit of an introduction to all of it as well. And therefore, I think it's important, based on people's expectations, to talk about Auschwitz as well and talk about the gas chambers there and how they're different to how people were murdered at Sachsenhausen. I think it's important to not pull any punches, but also not be like, "Ugh, gross, ugh, horror shock," right? And so you have to report on things that are horrible and shocking. You have to say that this is what happened. It happened there, 10 meters from where we're standing. But at the same time, you have to treat everything with the highest amount of respect for several reasons. First and foremost, for the people who went through it and I want to say survivors. I'm not sure if there are any at anymore. I would have to check. I think there was only, last I asked at the information center, there was only 1 or 2 left, if I remember correctly. But still, for them and their families and their memory and so on, you have to treat their place with respect. But also for the country here, like I became a German citizen, fine, but this country allows people to come and visit this place and read about it in English, and it allows me to go there and talk. And there's a level of trust there that I will be one of the ways that people engage with this history. And so you've got to take that responsibility, I think, very, very seriously. At the same time, I've got to make sure that people know where the bathroom is and they can get a bottle of water if they need to and stuff. I do tell people at the start of the day, it's not really a day for whinging.
Well, there's a little bit at the bottom of your pages that tells you like 3 or 4 things to bring, or like, be prepared. It's nothing
Exactly.
too heavy, right? It's just a little
No.
checklist.
No.
But I don't know. Did I say anything about whinging? But maybe you just save that for the for the face to face bit.
No, I would save that for face to face. But I had one person there last year who kept complaining. Oh, I'm so hot. Oh, I'm so hot. I'm really hot. And I'm like, yep. The Nazis didn't build a great deal of shade.
Yeah,
comfort wasn't high on their list. Do you know who else was uncomfortable here? Yeah, these 200,000 blokes that we're here to talk about. And I'm a big whinger, love a whinge. Train's late, food's late, blah.
There's a time and a place, I think, Jonny.
There's a time and a place, and you can kick yourself at some point and go, "I'm all right. I'll be fine." And I think that kind of humbling experience is one of the things you get from going to Sachsenhausen. But you also get a sense of what humanity is capable of. And I'm really not trying to toot my own horn here. That's not something you get from being there with me. It's absolutely not. You get that if you went there on your own. But that's why I think it's a very important thing. And when I see politics becoming more populist, more divisive, more right-wing, I think it's more important to go there than it ever has been, which makes me sad. It makes me sad to say it's more important to go there now than 10 years ago when I first started going.
We've seen it recently, just in Turingen and I forget where else, but yeah, like a couple of AFD results, albeit in a small village context, whatever. But hey,
yeah. Well,
so it takes.
Oranienburg, where Sachsenhausen is one of those small, rural, former East German towns that votes for the AFD as well. You'll see. Like a Run DMC style logo, like that says FCK AFD, right? Mm-hmm. And I saw a sticker out there today that says LVE AFD, with the AFD blue instead of the Run DMC red, and that's in Oranienburg. That's around the corner from a former concentration camp. Do you know there was 2 concentration camps in Oranienburg, and it was right in the middle of both of them. And you're just like, you're angry. It's sad, but it has to be dealt with. But it's very sad to see it a place where the education is right there. It's around the corner and it's free, and people are still turning towards these things, which again makes first step is awareness of how bad these ways of thinking can be. Second step is going to be talking with people and dealing with it. And I think this is a weird thing that sometimes happens as a guide, because you talk about these big things, these big moments in history, and therefore people think that you might have a bit of an insight into what happens today. But, someone asked me if I think Putin's going to last a year, and I'm like, I don't know, mate.
No, I mean, that's, that's...
I can tell you where the bathroom is, that's really what my job is in a way. And I can point at this and I could crack a joke about Frederick the Great or something. But yeah, it's but it's dealing with this heavy stuff that also makes the job interesting. And I'm not dismissive of people when they ask these kind of questions, but sometimes I do have to say, I am just a tour guide.
There's a certain limit to what I can what I can share with you or what I know. It's just
absolutely, yeah.
Jonny, then before we kind of wrap up a little bit, what would be the? I'm not going to ask you for one place we should visit Berlin, because that's just cheeky, right? So it's kind of because you're like, well, what are we going to do? But what would you say would be your favorite kind of not really out of the way place, but out of the way place in Berlin that you would recommend someone to go, just if they have like half an hour or an hour to, they're there for that super short period of time, but they really want to do it.
Okay, then lately, because it's near the area I live now, I really love the Treptower Park. So that is a park that's along the side of the river. It can get really, really busy as a result. So you have to pick a weekday or so. That's the nice part about being self-employed. It's me, my gimbal, and the retirees, who are lovely, by the way. Always keen to talk to a guy with a gimbal. They love it. You've got the big Soviet War Memorial there, which obviously as a kind of history nerd, I think is it's very overblown.
I don't know, how would you describe it? I know exactly what it is you're talking about. It's like these 2 Yeah, it's like not an arch, but there's these
Yeah,
two kind of
exactly. It's
soldiers at the front.
almost
Yeah,
an arch, isn't it? Yeah, with this
it's
red
next to
marble
is
on.
it next to a memorial or something like that, right?
The whole thing's
I'm
a big
speaking to
memorial.
the expert here. You could tell
No, that's fine.
me.
It's I do use the word expert in my marketing, but if I am an expert, that's to be
Small E then. Okay, I'll let you
yeah,
off.
yeah.
Don't
Someone
say
else has to
small E.
say that. Yeah, yeah. I think off the top of my head, about 9,000 people are buried there. It's got a giant over the top statue of a guy with a big sword stamping on a swastika, carrying a German child to safety. Mother Russia is looking at him from a distance, and she's crying because of all her dead sons, which is, several million people, not to be sniffed at, not to be made fun of. But it's also covered in quotes from Stalin. Like even in the 60s, the communists said, oh, we don't really like Stalin anymore, but they kept those. And the quotes are like a storybook version of the Second World War from the perspective of the Soviet Union. Not while they were on the same side as the Nazis, of course, only after
Right.
they parted ways. And so I think I quite like it for the fact that the whole thing is very overblown and very, very propaganda-esque. But also in the park, there is 2 beer gardens, and they're both great. And so if you've got your half an
What
hour...
more do you need, man? Yeah, perfect.
Exactly. You can get a little bit of history. One of the beer gardens is on an island. If you don't like being on an island, I don't know who you are. And so, yeah, you've got a kind of little microcosm of Berlin there. Yeah. Otherwise, I was going to pick one of the places, but you need more than half an hour. If you could teleport, half an hour here would be great.
Well, half
Is
an
a place,
hour-ish.
yeah, a place
A wee
called
bit.
Klein which hopefully is going to be on my bike ride I was talking about before, which is not me trying to plug it. Go there without me. Anyone can go there. All I am is a guy who talks. But it's Klein was a East German exclave, one of them, in West Berlin, only accessible by a bridge. And they say there's about 50 houses in there, and one family dug a tunnel out there, and so I don't know. From a history nerd, bit of a Cold War nerd perspective, it's just like, how did this weird thing happen? How do you have 50 houses with a wall all the way around them and guards on a bridge and all this? It's all a bit silly. And now you go there and there's lots of little signs, information, history. But yeah, you can also get some cracking ice cream there. So
Well, you're a man in the know, Johnny, right? If it's not a cheeky beer, you get a nice little cone or something to kind of quench your thirst as you're.
Well, yeah, people think they'll do a walking tour. They might shed some calories. Absolutely not. That's not the goal.
Glad to hear it. What's your average step count, or do you count your
I
steps?
do know that. 17,000, I think, 17 or 18,000.
Excellent, man.
The
You don't
reason
need to
I
go
know,
to the gym then, eh?
I bloody do. You should see me if I
Right.
breathe out. Yeah. No, because I checked what the difference was from when I had my last office job to now, and yeah. On an office day, I really struggled to even get to 10,000, and now I do 17 without 17 is an average. So, and I love it. Every day, I'm thankful to be outside and to meet people. And yeah, it's one of those cliches. I think I've said a lot of cliches today, but yeah, the worst days of this job still beat the best days of the last job. They really do. Yeah.
Excellent, man. Is there anything you want to cover before we move on?
I mean, aside from ruthlessly plugging myself, if you think I'm interesting at this point, then thank you. You might enjoy me in 1 or 2 minute clips on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, whatever your poison is that you're trying to quit. Let me further the addiction.
Just as we were talking before we pressed the record button there about the tech you're using, would you say it was it took you a bit of getting used to it, or just finding the right balance for you? Was it more a case of not really trial and error, but finding your feet
Bit of
a bit
both.
more
Trial and
comfortable
errors.
with that now? Oh, excuse me.
Trial and
Sorry.
error is totally fine. Oh, all good, all good. The one part where I'll brag a bit is I think I'm fairly natural in front of a camera, so that's nice. That is just luck. That is it. I didn't have a certain awkwardness in front of the camera. I think it's because I don't use scripts. So So I really am talking from the top of my head, so it does feel quite natural. But yeah, I mean, I've always been handy with a camera in terms of still photos. But yeah, I was out there with my gimbal and my microphone, and really, yeah, I did lots of tests, testing if the microphone works, testing how it sounds outside, testing how it sounds in wind. Then using a mirrorless camera, like an interchangeable lens camera as well, so I can get like more and better varied shots in there. Learning editing, everything that almost everything I'm doing this year, social media wise, I've taught myself, and so it's again, it's very similar to any creative pursuit, right? You're constantly getting better. The best thing is always the last thing that you've done, even if nobody else agrees, because you know what you've done there that you couldn't have done before, and yeah.
For me, it's just trying not to ask as many daft questions as I did before. So I guess that's a work in progress. So.
I don't think I've been asked a single daft question today, at least by you. But no, one of the things we did say before we started to record, I said, was boys with toys, right? I've now got a certain excuse to buy a few gadgets, and play with them, and write them off my taxes as well. So it's like, I need it for work, actually.
You can justify it, right? You know?
Absolutely. You know, the 12 millimeter end of my zoom lens won't be the same quality as a 12 millimeter prime lens, you know. So, and so on and so on. You can always justify it, but yeah, that's been fun and something I've always been very interested in. And I think the wonderful thing I'm getting to enjoy at the moment is that my work life and my hobby are completely mixed. I love photography. I love shooting video. I love finding and researching stories. I love meeting people. I love Berlin. I love talking about Berlin. And like, yeah,
there was a great clip last weekend, I think I saw, with your friend that made it, an Australian tour guide. You were up at the grave of F.W. Murnau.
Yeah. Oh no, I made it.
You were there too. Yeah, you were.
I shot it and edited it, but yeah, it was a collaboration. Yeah, she did all the Murnau research and the speaking. I just kind of introduced it, really.
As a big fan of Nosferatu myself, you know.
Fantastic. Well, do you know what I found out from the comments of that video that we missed on the day was that his skull was stolen from that grave a few years ago.
You're like, okay,
couldn't happen to a better person. So I think we've got to go back and do another version of that. Yeah, but that was Tina Searle, Searle. If anyone wants to look her up, she is another excellent guide. And should you choose to go with her instead of me, I would be very, very happy to hear it. She's wonderful.
She has a nice Instagram page as well. If you go check her, she posts lots of really interesting things. And one was like a day. She just put like 5 or 6 photos of like this and that, and I was like, great, right? You know, because someone who's never been to Berlin, I was like, okay, I'm seeing things from and I think it was cake involved at one point, or coffee or something.
She's great. She's great at finding and trying out all the best and newest places to go out to eat and so on. And I'm not as good at her as that by a long, long way. And I follow her tips as well.
Always good to share, as we were saying.
Absolutely.
Jonny, top 5, if that's all right. Let's start with a musical guilty pleasure then. You don't have to feel guilty necessarily.
Yeah, but I'm trying to find something that's properly embarrassing. What would I go for? I mean, as a child of the 90s, a fan of any 90s pop, that would be embarrassing. You could put S Club 7 on and I would sing every word, and I'd swear I still know half the dance moves. So Reach for the Stars, something properly cheesy. I love cheese.
I can't even remember what their big song was. S Club something or other.
Escapati.
Is that what it was? Okay, it's like
Escapati. Yeah. Also Reach for the Stars. Never Had a Dream Come True.
Oh, Jonny, man, you're rhyming them off here, man. It's like, that's true cheese right there. Is that a bit of a hidden guilty pleasure than just the stuff you kind of grew up with, or it was?
It's a bit of both, isn't it? I guess familiarity. Those songs I think were designed to get inside of your head. All these manufactured pop acts, but I still wouldn't turn my nose up at them, right? Like if they came on, I'd be like, right, this is
cool.
As long as it's not a funeral.
Toe tapping going on,
Yeah.
Right? Why not?
Absolutely, yeah.
Tell us someone just on the opposite side of that, and someone that you don't get, you think is overrated, or you're just kind of the whole thing just bypasses you. You're a bit like, I don't get it, man.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit late to saying this because I think it's from about 10 years ago. But I've got two. Okay, the one I was going to say was the one I was going to say was the XX. Their album came out, everyone loved it. Everyone thought it was amazing. Yeah, right. Then their second one came out, and they loved it, and I'm like, this is for me, and I hate to. If anyone from the XX just listen to that, keep doing what you're doing, love your life, enjoy yourself. I'm not here to tear anybody down.
No,
I did not understand.
We just don't get it, right?
Anything about that. The other one that's actually on a quite similar note, which makes me sound like a Philistine, is Radiohead. They should be exactly my jam, and I hate it. I hate it. And I saw them live a few years ago. They were doing the King of Limbs tour, and I was right. I kept waiting for them to play a song, and then it was over. And I was like, it's just like, it sounds like a drum machine and a mouse that's wailing. I really didn't.
This was in Berlin. You saw them, yeah?
Yeah, and that's at a really nice venue. It's an outdoor venue. It's a bit like being at a festival, but it's a concert venue. But people love this band, and they find them super meaningful, and they say like, it's a transcendent experience being at their shows. And so I would love to have that. Like, don't get me wrong, that would be great. But I was like, this was an expensive €70.
I mean, on the other hand, I quite like Radiohead, and during the pandemic, maybe in the early days of 2020 or like the first lockdown, Radiohead were one of those bands that were putting out a concert every week. So I saw a few of them. One was from Berlin. It may well have been the one you were at, but it was 2 hours, 2.5 hours long, whatever it was. I mean, you get your money's worth in that sense, but sometimes people just like a 4 to the floor tune, right? When they're kind of like, let's
exactly.
Club 7 it up. I don't know if that's even a bit
exactly.
If that's
so
unfair,
if anyone,
you know what I mean,
if anyone gets anything from this podcast, it should be Jonny Whitlam prefers S Club 7 to Radiohead. Yeah, that's what I wanted going into
new branding. That's what it is.
Yeah. See how long that lasts. Yeah, and I think as a big Radiohead friend of mine pointed out, like, that's what this album is. They're touring this album, like it's a little bit on you to not have done the work beforehand. You just bought a ticket because everyone was buying a ticket. So yeah,
they're a hard band to get into it if you're coming into it for the first time, as it were, right? You might know Creep or High and Dry, whatever, of
course.
And then you're a bit like, all right, great. And then you're a bit kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah, so they've just unfortunately never been for me, although, and I think the reason that it kind of sticks in my throat a little bit is because I want to be one of the cool kids. I want to like them. Cool people like them. Cool friends of mine like them. I want to like them, and I just don't. And so that's much more about me and my self-image than it is about any objective music taste or ability, or however you want to phrase it.
Yeah, Radiohead's a bit of a time and a place for me, I suppose. It's there's other times you just can't be arsed with it. You're just like, just get to the chorus, man. Like, but it never comes. Then there's other times you're a bit, you might be in that headspace, as they say, and you're a bit, this is all right. It's kind of it's just there, and it's not annoying you, and you're like, all right, cool. But yes, it's an acquired taste for some, maybe. Is there a venue you enjoy visiting in Berlin or elsewhere, for that matter? A good place you've seen some top bands?
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. There's quite a few. I think I'm a little bit like a child when it comes to these things. I'm just always excited when I get through the gates. I still want to run up to look at all the T-shirts, like literally run. I don't, but I want to. Like, that's the level of excitement I get. So one of my favorite places, not a small venue by any means, is the other big outdoor stage, the one over by the Olympic Stadium, which means it was built by them, and was built to be impressive. And like, it's kind of like a amphitheater, I suppose. Yeah. And it's very steep, and it's all made of stone, and it does look very impressive. But I just had one of my favorite ever concert experiences there, which was Black Sabbath. Their
Is
supposed
that
last show in Germany.
the end
Yeah,
tour, that
and
one?
and it wasn't the first time I'd seen them, but obviously I'm far too young to have seen them in their prime. And like, I reckon they're a bit shit on stage, to be honest with you. You know, they don't really move around much. Ozzy did his best, but yeah. But I knew this before because I'd seen them before, and I was like, I know what I'm going to get, and I'm going to get my last chance to hear Iron Man live on stage from the people who wrote it, or at least three of them.
Was it loud enough? I mean, that might be the kind of what's the question? Was it loud enough? Sabbath, I'd imagine, or loud. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
a bit of a
yeah.
Sabbath fan myself. I quite like that Sabbath.
Yeah, plenty loud enough. And I just had one of those just perfect evenings. It's an outdoor stage, so it was in the summer. Weather was just right, not too hot, wonderful. There may have been a certain amount of assistance to the enjoyment, which did its job. And I just look back at that and have such a wonderful feeling, wonderful thought about it. Otherwise, there's like quite a few smaller venues in Berlin, but I wouldn't say I've got kind of an inside unknown tip there. I mean, you just kind of you follow whatever act is on, right? So one of there's a place, God, what is it called? Franz Club, I think is the name. It's in the same building, if that's not what they name it when they have a venue, which is, it feels a little bit like going into a village hall, even though you're up in the trendy district of Prenzlauer Berg. But yeah, do you know what? Two things happened there. This is my coolness quota is vastly diminishing. I met Steve Harris there from Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden, yeah.
Yeah, Iron Maiden didn't play because it's a very small venue, but he had a side project. So I met him there, so it just kind of sparks a happy memory. But I saw Yard Act there last year, who are just phenomenal. Just, I mean, I absolutely love them, and I mean they've only got the one album so far. They just had a single came out the other day, actually, and I'm very excited to hear their new stuff and see where they go. And I brought two mates with me who weren't that bothered, and then they were like, "Oh, I get it now." And you get to see people have that experience of like oh yeah, when I listen to the record, I don't really care, but I get it when I'm there, and like it's
a moment.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
And he says, trying to remember all the questions. Go to karaoke song.
Oh, so as previously mentioned, I have a complete lack of any musical talent, and whilst I'm not
drummer,
shy,
man, it's fine. We're kindred spirits, right? So it's all right.
I couldn't play the drums even slightly. I have a terrible singing voice, as many people have told me throughout my life, completely unprompted as well. So I'll just be like, I remember once singing along with whatever Christmas song at a Christmas party, and a mate of mine went, "You really can't sing a single note, can you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." But
in my head, it sounds fine.
Yeah, I'd forgotten for this brief moment while I'm enjoying Christmas dinner and a couple of drinks. But yeah, and it gets to me. It gets me down a little bit when it comes to the fore. And so karaoke for me, I really have to have put a few pints away. And then, you know, the last one I did that I really enjoyed was a friend of mine. We did a song from Mulan. Jesus, you've really wrecked my street cred at the end of this podcast.
We can head to this bit. I'll have to do some kind of a digital wizardry to kind of
put in
keep your cred
cool
points up, Jonny.
Yeah. But it was I think Disney songs are a good go-to for me because I can't sing, and if you're with a bunch of mates similar age, they all know the words too, and so it becomes something of a communal thing, let's say, and that allows me to hide a little bit, right? As opposed to, I don't know,
I'll give you a cheeky tip if you like.
Please do.
Go for something out of the Hendrix repertoire, something short, Purple Haze or something like that. Just
Yeah.
get your air guitar on. Everyone knows Purple Haze, and then the rest is mumbling. You're like, Purple Haze, and then you do a bit of that, and everyone's like, whoa, and everyone's a winner.
Fantastic.
There's an insider's tip for you, you know.
That's very good advice. Yeah.
And of course it gets me. Everyone's like, yeah, that was great, you know. Well, ish.
Good enough.
Last question. Good enough indeed. Last question for you then, Jonny. Tell us someone that we might not know of yet. It's kind of not on our radar, so to speak, but somebody you'd like to kind of, enlighten us and share that with us. Who should we be listening to?
Oh, wow. I may have just ruined that. I think Yardak was my best unknown.
I was going to say we could have preempted it a minute ago, but I thought,
because they're not massive, are they?
But that's a good thing, right? In this context.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe it can double up because they've kind of just broken through a little bit. I guess a band I like to listen to a lot that I don't really know anybody else that does. They obviously have a lot of fans though, but that's King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
They do like an album every 6 weeks or something, mate. It's insane, right?
Exactly.
2 drummers and all that. I mean, they're a bit full on.
They're a bit full on. They can
it's
be.
Hard to keep up with how many guys are in the band as well. There's loads of them.
I like the lighter stuff. I'm not as interested in the heavy stuff actually, and so maybe that could be that deserves more attention. Would be their album, I think, from 2014 or 15, which was Paper Mache Dream Balloon, which is just 30 minutes of acoustic pop songs, and it's a absolute delight from start to finish. And I don't think for many people it would be even the go-to King Gizzard album, so that can count ideally as my unknown gem, because I've got addicted to them, and because they're quite diverse, they're quite broad in what they do.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of kind of stoner rock or a wee bit of kind of acid rock or all this multi-genre stuff. It's great.
Then there's all the synth stuff, and then there's some metal stuff, and you're just like, go for it. But I think whenever you buy into an artist, you also buy into their image and their ethos a little bit as well, right? Or you carry on listening to Gary Glitter, right? The art, separating the art and the artist is not something many people actually like to do, and so I think I just like that they feel like they're dicking around a bit. It's not all too
like
serious.
Mates in the rehearsal room, and they're like, all right, let's jam this one out and see where it goes.
Exactly. It feels like they're having quite a bit of fun. And when I was a teenager, I listened to a lot of metal, and it was all like angry and intense, and I absolutely cannot do that anymore. If I'm switching music on, it's to focus or relax or distract myself, aside from listening to music because I want to, right? It always has to fit the mood. And so that's one of the benefits of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, right? There's always something that fits the mood.
I think it's been a while since someone's had them on their list, so yeah, nicely done.
Oh, right. I'm not like, it's not the same every week. Did anyone else pick S Club 7?
No, you're definitely a first, so I think you're right. You've zoomed to top of the charts.
Yeah, for those of you that aren't watching the video version, I've gone an even brighter red. On top of all my sunburn, I've turned into a tomato. Yeah.
The Guilty Pleasures is quite funny though, because people will genuinely tell you some really disturbingly bad music, and they're like, I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, it's okay, man.
Has anyone ever asked you these questions?
Not yet, no. I think we're saving it for 100. I don't know who's going to do it. But
yes.
I think I'm at 85 or something episodes. I can't remember, but I'm not far off the 100.
Cannot wait. I cannot wait.
We might have to do it in 2 parts just for the music bit alone. So it's kind of, it's like... Yeah, I think Guilty Pleasures are allowed though, because it's it might be cheesy, it might be rubbish, but it kind of, if it brightens your day,
yeah, there's room for all that.
Man,
Yeah, it's like a little it's like watching an action movie, you know. There's a time and a place to be challenged mentally and to learn new things and to think, and there's a time and a place to go. Like
And
my
doing a little
my
kind of
brain
dance
is
routine before you go
off.
out in the morning, you know, we do it. Yeah, you know, there are a lot
The
worse
day
things you
hasn't
could be doing.
started until I've drawn my magic sparkly S in the air in front of me whilst jumping.
Did
Yeah.
they not do a comeback tour like recently in the last year or
Well,
6 months or something? Did I not read something
well,
about
one
that?
of, one of the fellas died
Well, I read that, but I
very
remember
recently.
that wasn't that
Yeah.
long ago, yeah. But
No, I think that was this year.
they
So I
were
think they were
preparing
planning to
for a
do a
tour.
comeback
Is
at
that
that
what it
point.
was?
Yeah. So
It's sad,
so
man.
that's sad. Yeah,
Yeah, young
absolutely.
guy.
And cheesy though it may be, and so you know, the fella obviously had very big problems that he couldn't handle. And so, which I think is probably, I would imagine is linked to being part of what is essentially a novelty act as well, right? That can't do a lot for your self-esteem in a way. But that's just me, armchair psychologist here.
Yeah, you know, pub philosopher type thing. You know, it's
Exactly,
like
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I dig it.
Like, I know my place.
Johnny, tell the good people where we can find you once more.
You can find me on many different social media platforms. So long as you search for Whitlam's Berlin or Whitlam's Berlin Tours on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, I should be there. I also have a Reddit account, but Reddit is scary to me, so I don't interact very often there. But you could find me there if you wanted to.
If you want to post some kind of innocuous message about, hey, stop talking about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was my face just talking about history, yeah. And then there's obviously my website, which is whitlams-berlin-tours.com.
And there's plenty more content coming on the way you were saying, like adding to the map you've got with the videos accompanying stuff. So that should be a
absolutely
nice little
so yeah
nugget.
All the videos I do, which are the most popular thing I do online, they are all or will eventually all be on a map. And say if you find my Instagram or my TikTok, for example, or my Twitter, that's the pinned post is the map, because that allows people to get out there and explore these places themselves. A lot of people who follow me actually live here, and so they're not going to pay a guy to go and take them to some far-flung place, and nor should they. So yeah, you know, if you think, oh, this guy's great, but I don't really fancy doing a tour, then cool, come here and enjoy Berlin as much as you want in your own way. And I'm going to keep making sure all of this information is out there for free and to share with anybody. And if you want to send a message and say, hey, thank you, that's really nice. I really appreciate that.
Well,
best thing you can do is share something I do with somebody else. If you're not in the market for a tour, sending it to one other person, that absolutely makes my day, makes my life. So
excellent. Well, keep up the great stuff, Johnny, man. It's been an absolute pleasure the last hour and change.
Yeah, thank you very much. And likewise, you are absolutely lovely.
Oh, you just got me in a good day. What can I say? You know? We'll add all the links and stuff in the episode where they'll point the people in the right direction. And it's if you're ever in that neck of the woods, go hit up Johnny and
yeah. Oh,
see
what
what
you
it's
could
all
also
about.
do is, yeah, what you could also do is just send me a message and I'll send you my list of recommendations for bars, restaurants, clubs, books, documentaries.
There is
movies.
A beer bit on your blog as well. We've done all this time. We haven't even got to the beer bit yet, right? So there was a great line that said something about Bavarians don't do the best beer. It's just good or whatever it was. I forget the way you phrased it, but don't tell them it's the best.
No, oh yeah. Because like it maybe is the best.
It was like Helles or something they were talking about, or an Augustiner brewery or something like that.
Yeah, it's the Hofbrauhaus. I mean, it's kind of like, if it wasn't actually quite good, it would be a tourist trap.
I've been to the one in Munich.
Yeah. Well, that
I
is
filled my
one.
boots,
so,
funnily enough, there. I was like,
yes, I can imagine.
I did my
we've
country
got like
proud.
an outpost up here. But for you, it's a bit like if there was a really great Scottish restaurant serving haggis for tourists in London, and you'd be like, "What's this?" Um, but the Hofbrauhaus, bless him, it's actually quite good. It's good fun. The food is great. I
Yeah.
want to dislike it because Berlin and Munich have a big rivalry, but I included it in the list because I think it's, a lot of people they come to Berlin and they want to engage in every German cliche. And they don't
Who
want to hear
doesn't
from
like
some
a
smart
mass?
ass. Absolutely. But they don't want to hear from some smart ass like me that all the cliches that they want to enjoy actually come from Bavaria. They're like, but I want a liter beer. I want to wear lederhosen, and I want to see a woman in one of those dresses, please.
I'll take 2 out of those 3, Johnny. Guess what they are, right? But yeah, definitely check out the website. There's loads of great stuff.
I think if you take 2 out of them, you might be in trouble. Yeah. Nope. Anyway,
Johnny, thanks a lot, mate. It was great spending the last hour and so with you, and good luck with everything, man.
You too. Thank you very much.
Cheers.